And in Jeremiah 6:16 it says, "Stand at the crossroads and consider where your lives are heading." So stand at the crossroads, this one right here, right now, and consider where your lives are heading. Now for Jeremiah, he was saying this to his people. And in the meantime, the invading army was getting closer and closer, and the people all around him were panicking. This was not a good time for him to be saying, "Stop and look at where your lives are going." And yet in that moment, he was able to see things from a bigger perspective. In fact, one of the reasons may have been that the first chapter in Jeremiah starts off that he, in fact, was chosen by God to lead his people. God told him, "Before I formed you in the womb, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you to prophet of the nations." Wow. God had spoken to him and said that he had been consecrated. And God has consecrated each and every one of us. Maybe not to be a prophet, but maybe we're supposed to be a painter or a poet or a writer or a mother or father or a dear friend or a leader or whatever it is that is your unique purpose. Know that God has consecrated you, that you are manifested from the divine source, and that you have this opportunity to fulfill your unique dream. And Jeremiah, in trying to get his people to see the bigger picture, he wasn't blaming the invading armies because they were coming. He wasn't lamenting the fact that he didn't have enough resources or time. He was telling them to look where their lives were heading. And it also says, "And take the good path and walk it, and there you will find rest for your souls." So Jeremiah is symbolic of what each of us know is really true, that each of us have been appointed for some unique purpose, and that we are living this life's journey, and all we need to do is discover it and then be willing to live it and make it a driving force in our life. And so in closing, I wanted to share a story about my daughter, Erica. And she was very happy that I could share this little part of her life. My daughter had always wanted to be a fashion designer and live in New York City. As a practical mom, I was thinking this was so not a good idea. But she just wouldn't get off of it, you know. Since she was like 10, she'd been talking about it and talking about it. And so by the time she graduated from college, she had some money saved, and she had actually wrangled an internship with the fashion icon, Betsey Johnson. She was so excited, and she told all her friends that she was going, and she said, "You know, I'm just so confident. I know I'm going to be famous. And, you know, it may take at least 6 months, but I am so willing to put in that time. I've got it down. I can wait. I can wait." So she goes to New York with a little bit of money, a lot of dreams, and has this internship with Betsey Johnson. And she gets to meet Betsey, and everything's going so wonderful. She's just sure that if Betsey knows her, that she'll know she's brilliant, and she will hire her full-time to be a fashion designer. But that didn't happen. My daughter actually had an accident, and she fell and almost severed her finger. And she had to have multiple surgeries and physical therapy. And so in the middle of this 6 months when she was supposed to be becoming famous, she was actually not able to do much of her internships. But she hung in there, and on the last day, still holding out a sliver of hope that Betsey would offer her a job, she went to say goodbye, and Betsey gave her an air kiss. She got a signed poster and lots of love, and we shooed out the door. Yeah, she wasn't famous, and she didn't have a job, and she was running out of money. And not only that, but my daughter had discovered that when she actually got into the fashion industry, yeah, she'd been studying for a long time to be a fashion designer, and she wasn't really sure that she even wanted to be a fashion designer now. And so she was really having a great crisis in her life. She went through several years and worked at some jobs. And she had a particular job with a startup where she was making like less than $20,000 a year. And she was working 100-hour work weeks. And it just wasn't getting her anywhere. She was barely able to eke out a living. And she was very much in despair, struggling and struggling and struggling, and worrying about whether or not this dream of hers was going to come to fruition. And in the dark of winter, there was a particularly sad time when she had left this one job and didn't have another one and wasn't sure what was going to be the next step. And as a mother, I was very worried about her. I really was, that she was depressed. And I even started to offer that maybe she was going to have to come home and leave her precious New York City. But she never faltered. She told me in those times of her deepest despair, she said, "Mom, I know that this is just part of my true Hollywood story." Those stories about the stars and the starlets, how they rise to fame and then crash and burn and then rise again. She said, "Mom, when I am really sad, I just hear that guy that does the voiceover, and then Erica Taylor had a problem. But she rose above it and became famous." And that's what kept her going. She was able to see her life from a bigger perspective. And so don't we all have that? We are all here living our true Hollywood story. And whether we're having a failure at this moment is not defining our life. It's just one step on the journey. And we can each remind ourselves each day that we have a bigger purpose, that God has called us to do something that is uniquely ours to do. And so just to summarize, what we've got to do on this journey called our life is we've got to work with what we've got. We've got to take our life and transform it into what it needs to be. We need to ask the people in our life if they will love and support us on this journey, and we can love and support them on theirs. And 3, we can take a higher perspective. We can see that this is this great, wonderful life that we're living, and we're not done. It's not over. We still can live our dream. And we can remember what Wendy Craig Purcell says, that we can open our heart and expand our minds and awaken our souls.